Hello everybody and welcome back to an emergency video on this channel. I did say at the end of the Bristol Rovers review video yesterday that I may be back at some point in the week if there's any managerial news updates, and there has been that update. It's kind of the decision that the majority of fans now, I would say, wanted to happen, and it is that the Oxford United board have finally made the decision to relieve Karl Robinson of his managerial duties. I feel we all felt that that needed to happen. But Robert, who has joined me on this video, welcome, Robert. I almost forgot you were there for a second. But what are your overriding thoughts and feelings based on this news today?
Mostly relief, I'd have to say. I'm relieved that we finally made a decision that we should have made a long time ago. There's also a bit of sadness and anger, a whole smorgasbord of emotions sort of swirling around at the moment, but mainly relief. This needed to be done.
Yes, absolutely. Most fans, including myself, have felt the writing's been on the wall for a while. A lot of people have gradually lost faith in Karl Robinson as the season's gone on. For me, when I went and watched him play Burton, that was such a poor performance. I felt that it was really difficult to see how he was going to recover as a manager. And that just really escalated on. We saw no improvement in results, or really no improvement on performances. Last week, you watched the game against Cambridge. I didn't watch it, thankfully, but that seemed to be the point where the decision should be made. They've given him another week, and yesterday, I'm sorry, was just a humiliation.
I don't know why they gave him an extra week. It was patently obvious after the Cambridge game we'd hit rock bottom. We'd gone
Yeah.
to a side that were in the relegation zone, who were struggling for form. That should have been 3 points for us, to try and ease the relegation issues. And they get an early goal, and we don't even look like scoring against them. We have a few half chances here and there, but nothing. And it was so galling. And then after the match, Robinson comes on and he's just ranting on there. He's patronising to Nathan Cooper, the Radio Oxford interviewee. And you just sort of felt like, right, enough is enough. And then nothing's done. A week passes. The Tim Williams, the CEO of Oxford United, was on the 5 Minutes Fans Forum on Radio Oxford, and he, by and large, ignored the question that hundreds of people written in saying, why is Karl Robinson in the job? He couldn't answer it. He just said things like, oh, it's being monitored, it's being looked at, we're reviewing it. But you don't feel like saying, why is this being monitored? Why are you not taking action? We've lost a week. We could have a new manager in place by now. I mean, even if we'd had caretakers at the weekend with a view to a new manager starting this week, that would be something. We'd be a little bit further down the line. But all we've done is lost time. I've read Robinson's notes on Friday before the match, and they were just full of the usual cliche and nonsense. We're not fighting, we're not lying down. You have to stand up and fight. All the players are pulling together as one, blah, 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 blah. And it's never backed up with actions. It's easy to write that crap, but it's the proof is in the pudding. Effectively, you look at the football that's being played at the moment, and it's diabolical. And it's quite telling if you listen to Cameron Bannigan after the game. And now, I mean, you listen to his interview, and you can take it either way. But for those who haven't heard it, he sounded absolutely dejected and fed up with the whole situation at the moment. He said how him and Sam Long are the senior pros, club captains now. We'll get to that. And club captains now, and how he's going to be fighting and rallying the boys, and they're going to fight together. Fair enough. And when he was tucked on the manager, he just said, "I don't care who the manager is. That's not important." And he just
Yeah. Sorry, you're absolutely right. And I think it was telling how Jerome Sale's reaction was shocked,
stop.
really.
Yeah.
He was like, didn't really know what to say, and just kind of moved it forward and ended the show. Look, yeah, you're right. Absolutely. And it was the fact that they kept him on board. I just had this really bad feeling that Bristol Rovers was going to be such. I didn't think it was going to be quite the 3-0 humbling that it was, or the humiliation, but I definitely didn't see Oxford getting a result in that one. I thought it being another 1-0 defeat, with Rovers getting a goal, defending manfully, and us not being able to get back into it. But you saw evidently yesterday that as soon as those players went a goal down, as soon as one thing went against them, they basically threw in the towel. And that is not the sign of players that are playing for the manager or have any confidence in what's going on with the manager or with the club at the moment. And that change needed to be made. And at least, thankfully, we can say it has been.
The anger part of what I was feeling is no longer really generated at Robinson. Um, it's mainly directed at the board, I'd say, at the moment, because they've allowed this situation to develop. This isn't something that's been in the pipeline. Robinson's, the end of last season, we've tailed away and there were flaws in the side. We would never advocate you get rid of Robinson then. He'd certainly earned enough time to try and move us on.
To be fair, some people did.
Yeah, some people did, but I think most people, a lot of fans were saying he has enough credit in the bank and just to sort of like he deserves a chance to try and turn this around. And that was being said at the start of this season. But this season has been a disaster from start to finish. We've recruited appallingly. I remember at the start of the season, we had Robinson coming out on a weekly basis saying, don't worry, once we get Josh Murphy and Yannick Wilczuk back in the side, things will be completely different. Well, they've been fit now since December, since about January, and nothing's changed.
Yeah, well, and in fact, it's probably got worse because we actually we had a decent spell. We were actually picking up points and went a long run unbeaten while those two weren't playing. But we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. But I think that's an important thing that you touched on there is the fact of like now that the decision's been made. And like last week, yesterday, my anger moved, and I said that in the video, more towards the board than it did towards Karl Robinson. And now that the decision has been made, I do share your sentiment of saying relief. And I don't really have the anger towards Karl Robinson anymore. I kind of just, it's like, okay, that's done. Let's look to the future now, and hopefully we can get somebody to stay in this division, because we will talk about, well, we will talk about in a second the season, how bad the season's been, and then we'll talk a little bit about the good stuff Robinson's done, and then we'll just end it with who we think might come in or what we think could happen. So let's start with this season then, and let's literally just roll it right the way back and talk about a few key points where you think everything's just kind of gone wrong.
I think the key things that have gone wrong are both the recruitment and behind the scenes. We don't know what's happening behind the scenes with like Karl Robinson, but it's clearly that there seems to be a disconnect between him and some of the players. You look at some of the very odd decisions that have been made this season. Jack Stevens being farmed out to Port Vale. Why? We get rid of someone like Mark Sykes, but we don't recruit anyone quick and to replace him effectively. All the recruitment we seem to get in seems to be sort of older players, more experienced, which could work effectively, but it's a move away from what's worked from us in the past. And then you sort of end up with situations like Jody Jones, who we sign, who's an experienced player. I'm not saying he's great because, frankly, I don't know because he hardly played for us. We signed a player and he just basically spent 5 months on the bench from us and then was being kicked off somewhere else, Notts County. And you just think, like, what was the point? At a time of the season when we were certainly had a few injury crises and we could done with some quick wingers, he didn't play him. And the players that he did bring in are basically players who have been injury prone. Josh Murphy. By the way, where the hell was Josh Murphy this weekend?
Have you heard what people have said?
Yeah, he's out at Newcastle. He's out in London on the piss with the Geordies.
Brothers in a cup final, so they've literally like he's gone to London for the weekend. That is disgraceful.
Because I mean, Josh Murphy's a professional footballer. You'd accept that from someone who's part time, but that can't be the reason. But
you hope it's not.
You hope it's not.
Well, yes. Look, those decisions. I mean, that's the thing. There's been so many baffling decisions, and they become more baffling because the season has been so bad, and the players just haven't really performed consistently this season. And I feel that like there was last season was a very enjoyable season, but you could see where the flaws was. The flaw was we didn't replace Alex Goran and we didn't have a huge amount of cover at the back. And whilst we were scoring a ton of goals, we were always shipping a ton of goals. And that was what needed to be, that balance needed to be addressed a little bit. And I think Robinson came out and did say that that is the direction we needed to move to make us more solid.
Yeah.
But he never really went out and did it. Yes, we signed Kieran Brown, good signing. He played well for us on loan last season. That was a no-brainer, really. Bought Stuart Finley in, but now he seems to have like lost faith in Stuart Finley and has only kind of bought him back in as a last resort. And there's not a strong, cohesive back line. And there was no replacement for Alex Goran, none at all. And Alex Goran's been crocked for pretty much the whole season and doesn't look the player he was before. So we've got a midfield now of just McGuane, Bate, and Brannigan, and we've got nothing to change there. We've got nobody else to bring in that midfield. A bit similar to last season, where it was just Kane and Brannigan, Kane and Brannigan, Kane and Brannigan. No matter how badly they played, they were the only two that could play there. And we've just literally done the same thing again.
Also, the fact is that you seem to have replaced fast, pacey wingers with Crocs, if I'm going to be completely brutal about it. We've lost Ryan Williams. We've lost Mark Sykes. Who was the chap we had from?
Oh, Robert, yeah, I'd say Ryan Williams was a big blow for me. But we lost Ryan Williams, lost Mark Sykes, lost Nathan Holland. We didn't re-sign. Nathan Holland went back on loan, and Gavin White went back on loan. So that was basically all our pace from a wide area. And then we didn't retain Anthony Ford in midfield either. So that was all our pace from a wide area basically stripped away.
But we signed Anthony Ford, though. He signed a new contract, and then we let him go to Wrexham. Now, I don't know whether Wrexham came in with a cheeky bid and then he decided it'll be a good move for him. Maybe it did. But another weird decision. Yeah. And the wingers that we brought in Yannick Wilchut, who we've not seen the best of yet, but even when he's played, he looks old and slow. Josh Murphy, who has... I'm sorry, I've seen him put in one good cross for us, which we've scored from, and that's all he's done. You've got Marcus Brown, again, once a very fine player, but now looking like his injuries have caught up with him, and he's not producing very much at all. Billy Bodin in the middle. Last season, he was one of my players of the season, Billy Bodin. This season, he is a pale shadow of himself. Now, I don't know if that's down to him or down to Robinson or part of the two, but that's another sort of loss in midfield. So suddenly we've got absolutely no pace at the side. Had Matt Taylor up front. Matty Taylor, hard-working, recruit experience, but not quick. And so all the pace has gone from the side. The only pace that we have got is probably coming from Tyler Goodrum, who was on no one's starting list at the start, at the start of the season, and Anderson, who's come in as a very weird loanee.
Anderson's our player.
Oh, is he our player? Sorry. Yeah. Okay. That's actually all right. We've brought Anderson in, who, if we do just playing wing backs, would be a fine right wing back, but we're not.
No. Atif Kanate's there as well, which I feel real sorry for him. I mean,
I feel sorry for him.
What a disastrous loan signing for him. Like I bet you almost wish he went back to Forest and was just there in the training fucking academy.
Well, I mean, it was sold to him as like, you're going to be helping come to a club that's going to be pushing for the championship next season. So he must have a vision of being in the midfield, sort of playing a few games and chance getting forward. Except he's played about 15, 20 minutes here and there against a side that is completely, bereft of confidence. That's no good for him at all.
Yeah, bereft of confidence, bereft of tactics, and there's been no momentum in the season at all. As a little like I described it as like a stalling car earlier on in the season, and that's kind of what it's been like. But now that car's completely just like conked out, and the motor's not running at all, and it's.
I think
it really, the whole thing. When you look at what we were like last season, where every Oxford game, okay, there were some games we didn't play great, but generally you looked forward to every Oxford game. Yeah. You wouldn't believe we'd be in this position now. It's inconceivable that we'd be this bad.
It seems to boil down to two things, effectively, looking at. We recruited really poorly during the summer, and that's not just down to Robinson. They're quick to pain. There's a committee that makes decisions on this, but whoever made the decisions, their recruiting decisions, by and large, have been shockers. And then it also then boils down to the man management of Karl Robinson. For whatever reason, there have been some very poor decisions made. Some sort of tactically. And regarding personnel, players like Finley have been sort of like marginalised. Jody Jones came in and never played. Players like Taylor been booted out the club. Jack Stevens has been kicked out as well. All these decisions, you look from the outside and you struggle to see the logic of it.
Yeah.
And then, so you got the poor management coupled with,
And as well, Baldock's fitness.
yeah, well, that's just coupled with the poor recruitment, isn't it? I think most people would have said you would give Sam Baldock a chance this season because based on the brief form he played last season, you'd give him a go. I think we'd all want him to give a chance, but you wouldn't. You'd think we need more than just Baldock and Taylor.
Yes.
I mean, Carl Joseph is a fine young player, but he's young, inexperienced, and we can't expect him to be the player who's going to keep us up. Ditto
And
Gatlin O'Connell.
you kind of feel like with Joseph, he's not a natural goal scorer. He's had his little purple patch where he's like got some goals for us, but now that's completely dried up. And that's like also as well. Look at this run of games where we've not only lost the majority of them, only that one draw against Milton Keynes Dons, we've conceded the first goal in every one of those games, and we've only scored 3 in that time. One of them a direct free kick, which the goalie should have saved from Brannigan. One of them a free header from Moore. Okay, fair enough, set piece goal. And the other one was a Lewis Bate like one he put into the top corner, which another day a goalie would have saved. But so they're not. It's not like we're creating very many chances from open play of where we're actually where you would actually think we would go on and win a game. It's more just the fact of like, okay, the players ran around a bit and gave a bit of effort, a bit more than they did in other games. But when you look at the actual chances that we miss, other than the Milton Keynes Dons game, I don't think we've had that many.
And also comes to the point where saying, do managers just reach the end of the road?
Yeah.
Robinson's been at the club now, what, 5 years? About 5 years. And for all his good work, it gets to a limit. The voice is just the same voice. And after a while, things do get stale. And, good managers are often able to reinvent that. They might be able to get new voices in. They might be able to get new personnel in to sort of change it. But for whatever reason, it's just gone stale under Karl Robinson. Maybe he will go to another club. In a few months' time, he might rock up at a League One, League Two club, and get them playing some good, exciting, attractive football because he'll be a fresh voice, and the players will respond to it. Maybe that's part. He's been at the club too long. Maybe the shelf life for most managers nowadays is about 4 or 5 years before they really need to go and get new blood in to try and refresh things.
Well, I think you're right there because it does seem to be like the way managers are coached. Generally, managers have like one style of play, and they very rarely seem to be able to change that. And Robinson's has been that 4-3-3. Okay, occasionally we've gone to that wing back system, but he's been a very staunch 4-3-3. And if Plan A doesn't work, Plan B is to do Plan A better. But that's not just Robinson. That's a lot of managers you could pin that on up and down the Football League. But look, I think we've, again, I think that's as much we can do on summary of what's gone wrong. You'll have your own comments on it down below. I think we'll just be circling the drain back on the key points that you made, which is really about the recruitment and things going a bit stale and a bit toxic behind the scenes, which has bled over into what we've seen in front of the scenes and with the fans as well. Just one final thing, the Jody Jones situation is just the worst one for me because you've binned him off because you wanted Josh Murphy to play or Yannick Wiltshire to play. I would say even if Jody Jones would have played every game so far this season, I bet you he would have done more than what we've seen from Yannick and Josh Murphy so far. That's just my comment on that one. He was never given a chance. But let's take a look back though, Robert, and let's have a look over Karl Robinson's tenure as Oxford United manager, and let's just go over a few little points because it has generally, although you've not been his biggest fan, I've been more of a fan of Karl Robinson than you have. Generally, it's been a bit up and down, but I would say if you take out this season, it's been more up than down.
If you take Karl Robinson's tenure on the whole, it's been more positive than negative. I will say to you, I've not been a big fan of Karl Robinson, and that's just a personal thing. When I hear him talk, I find him deeply irritating. There's something about how he talks and how he conducts himself with most of his interviews, that just rubs me up the wrong way. But I will say that for a large part of what he's done at the club, he's done a good thing, and that's maybe in the ambassadorial, being an ambassador for the club.
There you go. So what you're hoping for is someone to come in and rub you the right way. No.
Ideally, that should be.
No, you're absolutely right about that. But let's just say, look at Karl Robinson's win percentage ends at, and this season has dragged it down a lot. His win percentage is 41.3. He won 57 games. He drew 29. He lost 52. And you just got to imagine, like, that this season has dragged that down a heck of a lot from what it's been. But generally, he was brought in by Tiger to be a wow factor. Would you say he's lived up to that billing?
I wouldn't say he's been a wow factor. I mean, I never sort of see. I always thought that was the wrong description for him. He's just a decent League One manager. And if you sort of look at the results, you think of the good days that we've had under Karl Robinson, beating West Ham 4-0, going toe to the game at Middlesbrough where we sort of dragged it back to 2-2, the game with Newcastle at the Kassam Stadium where it goes back to 2-2 as the late winners, the games of Manchester United with Man City were good, exciting matches, and these are games that sort of like showcases the club as a really exciting, fun club to watch. And there were many good days that Karl Robinson brought. He had, at his best, we were in a free-flowing, attacking side who scored a ton of goals. And for that, I'm grateful for him. And for his off-the-field work, how he handled the situation during COVID. Not an easy situation, but he did an exemplary job there, checking up on fans and sort of being like a sort of tower of strength, really, effectively, for like players and for the club. How he handled the Mickey Lewis and Joe Beecham deaths. Again, absolutely handled them perfectly. Situations like he would go to the funeral of long-standing fans as a representative of Oxford United. That is something that is incredibly decent of him.
And particularly with that one with the fan whose name was Womble, and I never knew him, and I know you didn't know him, but like long-serving Oxford United fan, and you just heard that like Robinson unannounced just went to the funeral. It wasn't like Oxford United told him to go; he just went off his own back. And I think that you do have he is a manager that literally has come in and tried to really understand the culture and the dynamic of Oxford United and really try and understand the history, understand the fan base, and try and really drill that into the players. And I think he does. Just, I know we're on the verge of possibly dropping out of League One and going into League Two, but I feel he does. He has done a lot of good stuff at Oxford United, and he has in many ways left Oxford United in a better place than when he took over in terms of like facilities that we have and training facilities and structure at the club. But he got us as close as anybody to the Championship since Dennis Smith took us up in the mid-90s. I mean, we had that playoff final at Wycombe. Will forever, until we get up to the Championship, that will forever be a sliding doors moment for a lot of fans. There was even people referencing it yesterday, talking about Henry's miss and Eastwood bringing down the Wycombe player and giving away a penalty. By the way, I still blame Elliot more for that, more than Eastwood. And the season after that, getting us into doing a real that was the COVID season, but a real kind of surging run at the end of the season, getting us into the playoffs on the final day. Unfortunately, we were not good enough to beat Blackpool. And then this last season, where for the majority of the season we were a playoff side, and unfortunately, the ridiculously strong standard of the league meant that we, along with Plymouth, were two of the sides that missed out. Where even though both of us had very, very high point tallies, that would have got us into the playoffs in pretty much every other season.
Yeah. But I would say, in general, I think Karl Robinson is probably a decent man who's come in and he's tried to sort of form the club. He's trying to sort of be like a key figure at the club. He's recognised as his role as a manager as an important, as like in the role in the community, and he's tried to sort of live up to that. And at his best, he could combine his ambassador role with being a good football manager who recruited in exciting players, who many of them have gone on to bigger clubs and exciting football. But for whatever reason now, it has gone stale. and he was unable to turn it round. He was just like all managers you see in that situation. He's flailing around, frantically trying to find that magic combination that will sort of save him, and he couldn't do it.
Yeah, it
And
was. It did definitely seem like it became throwing things at a wall and seeing what sticks. And every week it was a different defense. Every week there was no cohesion in the side. But this was supposed to be the bit where we talked positively about Karl Robert, and you've dragged it down again.
well,
You
no,
keep
it's
dragging him
most
down into the
positive.
mud. Give the man a break. Give him his dignity. Damn it.
I made this point on Twitter a few weeks ago. Oxford United in January were contacting the fans, telling them to write in about the new stadium, and they garnered a great a great swelling of support from people. You wrote to the club, I wrote to the city council. Hell, our mother wrote. He's not an Oxford United fan. Wrote to the council to sort of say to give them the new stadium. They created a great bit of good feeling. And in about 6 weeks, that has all just been completely washed away. And that is down to the club now that there's such a bad atmosphere over here at the moment. And Tim Williams can sort of pop in and sort of like do his little speech about, oh, we were listening and, we are doing our best. It's like, no, I'm sorry. Just going on to Radio Oxford and sort of spouting a few platitudes isn't good enough. A decision needed to be made, and you failed to make it. Not just him, the whole board failed to make it, and it was the wrong decision. And their decision could end up leading Oxford United to be relegated, and that will set us back massively. Because the big problem is now we've got to try and get a team that's going to be good enough. Not only, well, we need to stay up first of all, but we now need to assemble a side that's going to be promotion chasing. And it looks a hell of a long way away from being a promotion chasing side at the moment.
Yeah, doesn't it? Doesn't it just? I think you've kind of jumped into what the next bit was going to be, which was where do we go from here? But just before we do that, any one Robinson game that sticks out for you that was a good one?
I would say the West Ham game.
Game.
West Ham game at home, 4-0. And that was a good 4-0. And that was sort of like so you had Shandon Baptiste charging in the middle. We had a good side there. We looked a real decent side that day. And, we tore apart a West Ham side. A West Ham side who was struggling and had their issues and they were bitched and moaned about it afterwards, but we made them look like they were
Well,
sort of.
it sacked Pellegrini, didn't it, that game? But
Yeah.
for me, it was two away games I went to in the 2019-2020 season, which were Lincoln away, where we won 6-0. Just phenomenal goals, phenomenal day, everything.
Yeah.
Everything Oxford hit went in the back of the net, but it was a superb team performance, wrapped around Tariq Fosu's wonderful hat trick. And then Rotherham away a few months later, where Rotherham were one of the strongest sides in the league, and it was a difficult away game. And Oxford went there and not only matched them, but were the better side. Went there, the pressing game was in full evidence, the pace in the side, the fitness in the side was good, and we were worthy 2-1 winners that day. And that was a day I really went away thinking, like, yeah, this is a real strong Oxford United side. So those are two that really, there were a few seasons ago now, and I'm sure there were others that I'm forgetting. And as I say, put your favourite one down in the comment. It doesn't have to just be shitting on Karl Robinson. We can remember the good things that he's done for the club as well. But Robert, you've already started talking about it, so let's lead into it. You talk about where Oxford go from here.
I mean, like I say, we needed to get a fresh start. We need a new manager. You hope this will bring a new manager bounce, that some players might be more galvanised, and it might lead to us getting a couple of wins, which we will desperately needed. New manager bounce doesn't always happen. You can't rely on it, but it's all we can hope for really at the moment. And then you hope for some.
We haven't had a new manager bounce when we've brought a new manager in during
No.
during the middle of the season, and the last two were Waddock and Robinson, and they weren't manager bounces.
No.
So we really need. Hopefully, we get one this time.
What we need is you need someone to come in now and just be, and sort of put their image onto the club in the same way that Robinson did as well. We need someone to come in and sort of have a plan to not only keep Oxford promoted up, but to actually be the person to try and push for promotion next season, identify what they need in terms of doing it, and over that with the club. I mean, off the top of my head, you got people like Neil Critchley, who's been made unavailable, who's out of work at the moment. He's a proven manager who can sort of know he's got results in the past with a different style to Karl Robinson, admittedly, but we don't necessarily need. I know people bang on about Oxford United play a particular way of football, but that's crap. We know we've played long ball before. Every club seems to think that they're like spiritual heirs to like Barcelona, but if we even when Ian Atkins was in charge of us and we played quite attritional football, it was still, as long as it works.
Thing is about managerial appointments is that we haven't made one yet, and we've still got this period of transition. And as much as there is a relief that Karl Robinson's gone, say the guys that are in temporary charge, Craig Shaw, Leon Blackmore, such Wayne Brown, they are the ones that need to get this short term lift out of the players, because we don't know how long that's going to be that they look for a manager. You don't know. It could be 2 or 3 weeks away. Oxford have dragged their heels with bringing in new managers in the past. So we are going to need hope that the players are just lifted by the fact that there is a change at the top, and that the new manager bounce almost comes with the caretaker managers.
I'm going to give a name to you, and what do you think about it as an appointment? Andy Wing.
Yeah, Andy Wing's been doing the rounds, isn't he? Obviously doing a good job with Banbury. Is it too much of a step up?
That's what I fear, really.
That's one I feel I would be hesitant on. I kind of would have loved Oxford to be able to be in a position where they could bring someone in like a safe pair of hands till the end of the season. I don't know who that is, because I feel that someone like a Neil Critchley, who I would like to be Oxford's manager, is the sort of guy that needs a bit of time to put his project in place. And one thing we don't have is time. We need a bounce. We just need 3 or 4 wins. I don't know where we're going to get them, and we don't need somebody. We don't like someone that's going to reinvent the wheel, which might take time to do. If the bad form continues and we don't address it, it's just going to make it more and more likely that we're going to be in League Two next season.
Yeah, I know. I mean, this is the thing. If we were safely in mid-table when we made this change, you could sort of take your time and sort of, uh, and sort of gives the person time to settle in. But right about now, you either hope there's a new manager bounce or that the sides below us continue to lose.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? That's maybe one thing that we were a victim of last season, with the points tally being out of our favour. Maybe it'll be in our favour this time round, and maybe the 50-point mark will be more like a 45-point mark, and therefore that brings the wins that we need down. But again, I'm going to go over the point of saying, at the moment, who would you honestly say that we've got a chance of beating? I don't know who we can. We're not going to be able to go to like a Peterborough or play a Sheffield Wednesday and be able to do anything other than just play a game of you score 3, we'll try and score 4. And if we play the sides at the bottom, it's more than likely they're just going to sit deep, try and get 1 goal, and they'll know Oxford will really struggle to get back into the game.
Yeah. All in all, it's an utter mess, isn't it?
It's an utter mess, but it's a mess that at least there is. I don't even want to say positive, because that sounds really nasty to Karl Robinson and sticking the boot in. But at least that you can what's the word I'm looking for here? Yeah.
You could. We needed to make the change. Is basically
Yeah.
what we're saying. Is sort of like we needed to sort of like without Karl Robinson, if Karl Robinson stayed in charge, we would have been the situation wouldn't have improved. Without Karl Robinson in there, at least there's now the chance for the situation to be potentially changed. With Robinson in charge, we were only going downwards. He was not able to sort of address it. And now at least we've got someone new in that might be able to sort of change things around. Even if 1 or 2 players now suddenly start performing, giving an extra 5-10% on the pitch, that might be what it needs. Maybe then we'll sort of like that's the difference between the player getting a shot in the penalty area or then putting the boot away, kicking it away. Or maybe you get that little bit of luck at the other end of the pitch where like Carl Joseph, actually gets his toe on it and it sneaks in the back of the net as opposed to sort of going just wide.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. You know, as I say, these changes do often coincide with a little bit of a change of luck and a change of fortune, and hopefully a change of attitude. An odd, really odd journey under Karl Robinson. Really, I'll still say that it was until this season where it went really off the rails. I would say it was a positive one. The first season in
Yeah.
full charge was a bit dicey, and there were times where we skirted with relegation. But then he found a team, he found a style, and we started to look a lot more of a consistent side. I won't mention Luton at home. Oh wait, I just did. And after that, the next 3 seasons, I think we were a genuine side pushing for maybe not automatic promotion, but certainly promotion through the playoffs back to the Championship.
We were a playoff pushing side,
And
definitely.
with a natural cycle, as you've said before, maybe it's just, these things aren't sustainable, are they? And maybe it was just our turn to have a little dip, have a little transition, and maybe whichever league we're in, we can go again with a more positive one last season. I don't even want to get into being in League Two.
No,
We'll address that when we have to, because who stays and who goes from there, I don't know. Let's hope that there is a change in the players' confidence and a change in their mindset, and that's the start of Oxford maybe getting the points we need and starting to look a little bit better, because the last few weeks have been just so bad. Do you want to have any final thoughts before we tail this one off, Robert?
No, I would like to sort of say I'm really sad that that Carl Robinson's tenure has ended as it is, because I don't want him to be abused. I don't, I'm not his biggest fan. I've said this before, but I don't want him to be abused. I don't think he deserves any shit that's been given to him. He was doing a poor job this season, and he deservedly lost his job. That's an end to it now. He should go with thanks for what he has done well in the past, and I hope he goes on to another club and has success. Not at our expense, obviously. We're not idiots, but he goes to another club and sort of like redeems himself and sort of like maybe gets promoted. But that's all I can say about Kai. He did a good job for a while, but it's right that he's gone.
Couldn't have put that better myself. I will just say a couple of things. That the man here, Robert, he's not a fan of Karl Robinson, but he is a huge fan of Joey Barton, and we'll just leave that at that. Uh, Thank you very much for watching. I'm sure you'll have your comments on this. If you got through the mad ramblings of two Oxford United fans, then thank you very much. If you can hit like and hit subscribe on the video, that does help me out. And we will see where this goes now. We'll see where it goes. I'll be doing a review of the Lincoln City game, and I look forward to watching that with a lot more enthusiasm than I did for the Bristol Rovers game.
You mean
Thank
you
you
have
very much.
actually some enthusiasm for the game?
There we go. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks for being with us, and I'll be back very soon.